First edition, thank you for your company this morning. Let's go live now to the City of Sydney, and a welcome to the city for the Treasurer, Josh Frydenberg. Doesn't look very pleasant behind you. I'm sorry about that, Treasurer. But first of all, onto our top story, and this is probably more a question for Peter Dutton, but we've got these hypersonic missiles that are on the way. Do you have any word on when we might be able to see them here?
Well, again, this is an important announcement through the AUKUS arrangement, the Australia, UK and the United States partnership that's giving us access to the latest technology systems like these hypersonic weapons that can have a range of more than 2,000 kilometres, can travel more than 5 times the speed of sound, and will help protect Australia in a much more uncertain international environment. So we'll get those missiles as soon as it's practical to do so. But the key point is we're getting in with the United States and the United Kingdom to very significant military partners for Australia, and that is good news for us. But whether Australians like it or not, Pete, our region is less stable. We will need to invest more in defence. That is what we are doing. The Labor Party was recklessly negligent in seeing defence spending on their watch fall to just 1.56% of GDP, the lowest level since 1938. Ever since we've come to government, we've increased defence spending now to 2% and rising, and we've helped build air warfare destroyers here in South Australia that are now in the water. We've helped make parts for the Joint Strike Fighters in Western Sydney that are now in the air, and we're having our combat vehicles and reconnaissance vehicles maintained in Queensland. So every step of the way in the defence and national security portfolios, we're investing more to protect Australia.
On Labor, Jim Chalmers said yesterday, or announced, a cut to spending on consultants. He'll abolish grant programs and possibly even axe the GDP gap to save money. Debt has to be trimmed. Is that the way to do it?
Well, don't look at what Jim Chalmers says. Look what Jim Chalmers does. The fact is he has helped the Labor Party come up with more than $80 billion of new spending during the pandemic alone. I mean, he was advocating for a policy that would pay $6 billion to Australians to get the jab, even though they've had the jab. He wanted the JobKeeper program to be extended and expanded. And I saw yesterday in his speech he was criticising JobKeeper. I mean, these guys can't have it both ways. And most importantly of all, he was the co-architect with Labor on $387 billion of higher taxes that they took to the people at the last election. Higher taxes on people's super, higher taxes on retirees, higher taxes on housing, higher taxes on family businesses, and higher taxes on income earners. He said he was proud and he was pleased of those policies. Now he wants you to conveniently forget those words. Anthony Albanese said Labor had a strong mandate for those higher taxes. Anthony Albanese has spent his life advocating for higher taxes on everything from death duties to a congestion tax, to a carbon tax, to a mining tax, to a retirees tax, to a housing tax.
They're saying no new taxes this time around, though.
Not what Labor says. Well, they can't be believed. They simply can't be believed. Jim Chalmers himself said that our stage 3 tax cuts, which are legislated, were offensive. He was against our stage 3 tax cuts, and now he wants you to believe that he will implement them if they get a chance in government. The other key point here, Pete, is Jim Chalmers and Labor have said they will do a budget after the election. The Australian people are entitled to know what would be in that budget before the election, not to wait till after the election. Labor and Jim Chalmers say they want to be flexible when it comes to tax. Well, Australians deserve to know what flexibility means before the election, not after it. This is a choice, this election. It's not a referendum on every decision our government has taken. It's a choice between a Liberal and National coalition that has delivered one of the strongest economic recoveries anywhere in the world and has a plan for our future set out in the budget, and a Labor Greens coalition who always will spend more and as a result will always tax more.
Is the Labor Party's small target approach irritating you?
Well, I think it's typical of their behaviour. They want to sneak in to government. They want to hoodwink the Australian people into believing they won't put up higher taxes, even though that was their policy at the last election, even though we know as recently as within the last year that Jim Chalmers was taking to his shadow cabinet proposals to bring back some of those taxes. Somehow those taxes were core beliefs for Labor just 3 years ago, and now they mean nothing. I mean, the Australian people are smarter than that. The Australian people know that the Labor Party needs to be held to account.
Well,
and that's what an election will do, Pete.
Sure.
It will put a spotlight on them.
When it comes to taxes, though, they are going to go up, whoever is in government after May, right? Whether it's fuel excise, whether it's interest rates or offsets ending next year. They're going to go up regardless of who's in power.
Well, we've actually lowered the company tax rate for small and medium-sized businesses to the lowest level in 50 years. We've delivered tax relief of some $40 billion since the pandemic began. We put in place record incentives through the tax system to encourage investment. We put in a loss carryback measure. In the budget, I announced permanent changes around a patent box, which will see a concessional company tax rate of just 17 cents in the dollar for businesses in Australia that innovate, that do research and development, that register patents in the areas of agricultural technology and also low emissions technology, and then earn income from those technologies and patents. That is lower taxes that we are delivering. You see,
but
we are
eventually
walking
go
the
up.
talk when it comes to lower taxes. No, we're seeing lower taxes going forward. Those stage 3 tax cuts have yet to fully come into effect. They come into effect in 24, 25, but we've legislated them. Okay. And what they will see is any Australian earning between $45,000 and $200,000 pay a marginal rate of 30 cents in the dollar. That's a lower tax burden for them. That's a simpler and a better and a stronger tax system for all.
Treasurer, the Prime Minister says he was standing up for women in the New South Wales Liberal pre-selection process. And I know you're with the Victorian section of the party, but is it that, or in the words of Conchetta Fierravanti-Wells, has the gender card been used to conflate captains' picks and trash democratic processes in New South Wales?
Well, the PM was making the important point that Susan Lee's pre-selection was under threat, and she's an outstanding member of our team, sits in the cabinet and doing a great job as the Environment Minister, and that of the new people that have been chosen for the various seats, half are women. And you know, that's a welcome development. But we have outstanding female leaders in our coalition team. We've in fact been a party of firsts when it comes to female leaders. First female Defence Minister, first female Foreign Minister. We've appointed the first female Chief Justice of the High Court. We have made significant progress in attracting the best and the brightest women to our parliament, and you know, I'll be out there later in the week campaigning with two of our great candidates in Dunkley, as I have been in Corangamite, but also in Flinders with Zoe McKenzie. So whether it's Steph Asher in Corangamite, whether it's Sian Coombs in Dunkley, whether it's Zoe McKenzie in Flinders, we've got outstanding female candidates at the next election.
Okay. When's the election going to be called?
I think it's imminent. And then
imminent?
It certainly will be
tomorrow?
It's imminent, and I think it will then be, well, the timing is of the prerogative of the Prime Minister, but when he calls the election, people no doubt will put the equivalent spotlight on the Labor Party, their costings and their policies, because what we saw from Jim Chalmers yesterday was not an economic plan, it was simply a rant. Not an economic plan, simply a rant, and Australians deserve better than that.
Treasurer Josh Frydenberg, thanks for your time. We'll talk to you soon. We're coming up, Ukraine.